Welcome to the Kino Cave, and today I'm going to be talking about Season 1 of Arrow. So, despite all its flaws, I kind of love the Arrowverse and all the stupid and kind of cool stuff that it contains. So yeah, look, I love good and bad things. It's okay to love good and bad stuff sometimes, and I actually do think there's a lot of good to be found in the Arrowverse TV shows. There's a lot of bad too, and look, I get it. It's kind of trash TV, but like, sometimes you need a little trash in your life. Because we're all a little trash sometimes. So yeah, I love the Arrowverse. I love Arrow. I've got a fucking box set of all of it, and yes, I will be buying the Flash seasons 1 to 9 box set as well, because I also love that show despite all the many stupid stuff in it. I haven't done a full rewatch of Arrow since I was about kind of 15 or 16. So I was kind of watching this show with more of a kind of developed, less edgy brain. And I'm a film student now. There's a lot more I understand about movies and kind of the screen media since I did a full rewatch of Arrow season 1, and there's actually a lot of good, genuinely really good stuff in this. Some stuff isn't great, but some of it I think is actually awesome. So we'll get into it. Just a little bit, I want to do a full video on why I love the Arrowverse so much, but just to kind of give you guys my headspace, I guess, watching the show is, I started with The Flash. It was just on TV one day when I was 12, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it instantly. I watched it every single week, and all the way into season 2 as well, and I was very confused when characters from Arrow started popping up, because I'm like, should I know these people? And then I kind of realized through the internet and stuff that Arrow was actually the show that started this kind of universe of TV shows. So before the premiere of season 2 of Flash and season 4 of Arrow, I binge watched all of seasons 1 to 3 of Arrow, and I absolutely fucking loved it. And I find that even today, a lot of my personality and a lot of the way I look and act is influenced by this show and the Arrowverse in general. I even got my hair cut like Oliver Queen when I was 14, 15. That's how much I absolutely loved these shows and how much they've influenced me. So focusing specifically on season 1 of Arrow, I'm definitely going to cover seasons 1 to 8, as I'm doing a full rewatch of this with my girlfriend, because I threw on the first episode and she ended up really liking it, so we're like, fuck it, yeah, let's just keep going with the whole season. Finish the full season, and now she wants to move on to season 2, so I'm gonna watch that with her. So whenever I finish up a season of Arrow, I'll do a video on that season and we'll cover the whole show. And I might get into, I'll probably get into The Flash, and I might go into Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow and stuff, although those shows don't mean that much to me. Not as much as Flash and Arrow do. So in rewatching season 1, I really, really liked it. It still holds up for me, actually. Despite some obvious similarities with Batman. Mainly, using half of Batman's rogues gallery, which I know is only going to get worse as it goes on, because okay, yeah, we got Deadshot, and we're gonna get Bronze Tiger and the Suicide Squad and Deathstroke, who's a fucking Teen Titans villain. And I'm fully aware that Oliver Queen in this show is modeled way more off of Bruce Wayne rather than Oliver Queen in the comic books. I get it, they're not straight adaptations. But in my defense, and in defense of this show, how many adaptations of comic books are just straight adaptations? How many Batman adaptations in movies and TV are just pulled directly from the comic books? Because it's actually not many. And it's the same with Arrow. So I feel like you can definitely still love this show despite it not being a very great adaptation of the comics. And even so, I feel like there's still a lot of Arrow that is a good adaptation of the comics from what I understand. I've been trying to read Green Arrow comics for the last like year and a half, and I just can't find any because Comixology just shit the bed apparently, and I can't read them online, and I don't know where to find comics online. So do you know what? In the comments, where can I read comic books online, like legally? Because I can't find any like good sites for it, and there's not a single bookshop or comic book shop. I was at Comic Con like last week or the week before, and they had no Green Arrow comics. Where can I read some Green Arrow comics? Please, I need to know. I want to read more Green Arrow. So, I'm going to be getting into full spoilers for season 1 of Arrow because, you know, it's my like third rewatch of the show, and it's been out since 2012, and I just really want to kind of really get into the kind of nitty gritty of this show because I don't think there's tons of that. Like, I know there's a couple of channels that cover everything on the Arrowverse and stuff, but I feel like I can definitely lend a different perspective and a different kind of video covering this show. So I'm gonna really get into most of the episodes. Some of them are just not really worth talking about, but I'm gonna get into a lot of Arrow season 1 in this video. So episode 1, the pilot. Really solid start. I love the opening like scene where you see Oliver get rescued and you get the monologue. It's great. I love the kind of setup of kind of the mystery. The scars and the tattoos are like awesome because you're looking at it and it's like, okay, how did all of this happen? And what I love about Arrow seasons like 1 to 5, no spoilers for seasons 2 through 5, but you do get an answer for each of those scars throughout the flashbacks in the first 5 seasons, which I love. And it just sets up so much intrigue. It sets up the relationships really well between Oliver and his mother, Oliver and Thea, Walter and his relationship with everyone else, Tommy and Laurel. And it's just a really solid start to this season, I think. And in terms of highlights from the pilot episode as well, I absolutely love the setting up the lair scene. And the music for that scene is awesome. I have that in my gym playlist because it's just such a fucking hype thing to listen to, especially when you're kind of working out. Like, the music from Arrow was really great for like working out and exercising and stuff. Largely because in like almost every episode of Arrow season 1, Stephen Amell is shirtless and doing fucking pull-ups on the salmon ladder and shit like that. So jumping into episode 2, we get a lot more development for these characters. Oliver and Laurel specifically getting a lot more development, and we're just kind of sitting with these characters and seeing how they evolve, the relationships between each of them. And, you know, Oliver's kind of going through his list and all that, but you know, this show is getting set up really, really well so far. Yeah, you know, some of the writing and the dialogue is corny and cheesy and kind of soap opera. Like, look, yeah, this show and, you know, most shows in the Arrowverse, it's very soap opera. The CW has a, you know, reputation for being a lot like that, but what's wrong with that, you know? Like, not everything needs to be like a really subtle and, you know, elevated version of whatever. Sometimes, you know, CW level is just, you know, nice to watch and binge and enjoy. Not much happens in episode 2 that's like noteworthy, so I just kind of wanted to go through the first like 3 episodes because it does a lot of setup. So yeah, characters, relationships, action, the plot of season 1, it's set up really well in the first few episodes. Getting into episode 3, I think this is where the show reaches its heights. You start introducing villains outside of the list, like Deadshot. And that's really good, I think, in terms of its kind of like, you know, I feel like it would get boring if Oliver spent the entire season just going through the list. So I love that even as early as episode 3, Oliver is kind of bending the rules of his one-man mission a little bit so that he can apply his skills to just general crime as well, to, you know, protect the people that he cares about. and also just do general good for the city, because he has these skills, and while what he's doing with the list, at least as we perceive it at the start of the show, he's doing good work for the city and everything, but he can stop regular crime as well. Easily the kind of biggest thing that happens in episode 3 and leading into episode 4 is Oliver revealing himself to Diggle. And I'll get into Diggle like towards the end of this video when I go into the characters, but my fucking boy Diggle, I fucking love that guy. I love when Oliver reveals himself to Diggle and we start seeing the foundations of that relationship. I think it would have been very tough to go through the entire show where Oliver keeps his identity a secret from everyone. I like that as early as episode 3 we're getting characters like Diggle finding out about Oliver, because I just don't think it would have worked, like, especially with Diggle being his bodyguard and having to follow him wherever he goes. It's fun that in the first 3 episodes Oliver keeps ditching him and stuff, but I think definitely having Diggle learn who Oliver is early on does a lot for the show. Jumping ahead to episode 5, it's definitely one of my favourite episodes of the season. The flashbacks are great when Oliver's getting tortured by Fires and Billy Wintergreen, who we think is Deadshot, and what a really great Deadshot mask as well. Like, I'm aware that like the CW costumes, especially kind of, well, no, even towards the start, like, I'm aware that a lot of the CW costumes aren't great, and I actually think they get better as the show goes on. Like, the costume from Arrow season 8 is, it's amazing, and the Flash costume from seasons 8 and 9 is perfect. But I love that even as early as season 1 of Arrow, where, yeah, he's wearing like a leather suit with like a pretty sweet hood, but I love that we're getting stuff like the Deathstroke costume, where like you're getting the kind of classic mask, and the costume design of Arrow throughout I think is pretty good. It has heights and lows, but I think even as early as season 1 of Arrow, the costume design is pretty good. But I think some of the best stuff about episode 5 of season 1, Damaged, is, for one thing, Oliver being suspected of being the Hood, which I kind of like how they address that, because it's kind of a similar thing with like Batman, like where Bruce Wayne returns after after disappearing for 10 years, and then suddenly Batman shows up, and it's like, anybody notice a pattern there? And they do the same thing with kind of Oliver Queen in this season, where Oliver gets rescued from the island, and then like a week later the Arrow shows up, or the Hood shows up, and so yeah, he would be suspected. But then obviously, his ass gets covered, and Diggle helps him out and all that. But I also love, for one thing, the polygraph test, the lie detector test, which I love that scene. I love the emotions in that scene from all the characters. But I also love the like prison party scene, which that looks like a pretty sick party. Like, there's too many people, but like I love the like shirt that he's wearing with the prison number on it. It's pretty cool. But I love the conversation between Oliver and Laurel in Oliver's bedroom in that episode, and him kind of letting himself be vulnerable for kind of the first time since the start of the show. This is a really great episode. I think this is like top 5 episodes of this season. Jumping ahead to episodes 7 and 8, I'm kind of looping them in together because these are the Huntress episodes. I don't know how to feel. On one level, I like having characters like the Huntress being introduced and having her be kind of like an on and off villain / love interest for Oliver. Although I think the storyline with her isn't really developed enough, and it's a lot of just kind of Oliver and Helena being kind of just trauma bonded, rather than having them kind of act more like vigilantes. And I don't know, I guess what I was kind of hoping for with those episodes was be something along the lines of that episode of Daredevil, when Daredevil and Punisher are talking about morals. I was hoping to see more of Oliver and Helena kind of arguing and being opposed to each other in terms of their kind of moral compasses, because what Helena is doing is more out of vengeance, and Oliver is doing what he's doing out of a sense of justice and honor. I would have liked to see that more developed rather than just them just talking about how damaged they are. And yeah, I mean, I like when they're kind of training together and he gives her the crossbow and all that. Also, I don't really like the actress who's playing Helena. I don't think she does a very good job. I'm sure she's better in other stuff, but I just don't think she's that great in this. And I think the costume for Huntress is kind of lame. Like, throw some purple in there, come on. Episode 9, Year's End, is where I think the show really, like, finds its footing and hits its stride. Because in episode 9, we get the Dark Archer being revealed as a villain, and we find out that it's, you know, really Malcolm Merlin, and there's a lot more kind of drama there, and you know, Oliver starts to make his mission less about the list and more about just protecting the city and saving it from the Dark Archer and whatever the plan is with the list. And it's a really great episode. The action, the fight between Oliver and the Dark Archer is fucking great. Malcolm Merlin is such a great like villain and a great foil, which I'll get into more towards the end of the season. But yeah, I absolutely loved this episode, and it's a really nice kind of, I love the Christmas episodes of the Arrowverse TV shows, especially in kind of the early seasons. I think they kind of ignore the Christmas episodes in the later seasons of Arrow and Flash, but I gotta watch the Christmas episodes of, you know, season 1 Flash and Arrow and stuff around Christmas time. It's really comforting to me for some reason. And especially I love the ending of this episode, Year's End, when Oliver's kind of feeling the guilt that he failed. You know, he failed this city himself. And I just absolutely loved that little kind of monologue and him making a promise that he is going to find the Dark Archer and stop whatever he's planning. Episode 10 is kind of a weird episode. I like it. I like these small scale kind of stories. I like that every once in a while we just get a kind of a villain of the week. Because if it was like drama and plot in every, like in 23 full episodes, it would have gotten a bit too much. So I like that we kind of have this small scale where Oliver just gets to fight like a kind of a regular villain. My problem with it is the villain that they chose, Firefly, also a Batman villain, they kind of fuck up his character. Like, my understanding anyway from the many Batman comics that I've read and other media that I've seen, like Arkham Origins and the animated series, is that Garfield Linz, he's not a firefighter who just wants to seek revenge on people. He's a guy who's obsessed with pyrotechnics and fire. And the burns he has all over his body aren't an accident. Well, they are, but like, the burns all over his body is self-inflicted because he's so obsessed with fire and experimenting with it. And they just, like, it's a really interesting, like, thing for Firefly, but they kind of just water it down to be just a revenge story in this episode. So, yeah. Episode 12, Vertigo, is a really good episode. I didn't really like it when I was a kid, like when I was like kind of a teenager, I guess. I never really liked the Count as a villain. I thought he was boring. I think because it's not like a comic booky kind of villain. Like, this episode and all the episodes with kind of that focus on Vertigo, they're a lot more mature. So I probably just wasn't mature enough to fully kind of grasp it when I was a kid. But now the Vertigo episodes, they really hit me, you know? Like, I've never really had like any problems with drugs, and I've never really known people who've had issues with drugs, but it's still just kind of hitting, you know, it still kind of hits me because it's a very real issue. And I feel like Arrow, you know, it's meant to feel kind of more bombastic and a bit more elevated and a bit more dramatic, but the Vertigo episodes bring up real genuine issues, and especially since it affects characters that we care about in Thea. These episodes I really loved them more on this rewatch of the season, because it's these kind of colorful characters dealing with very real issues and suffering the consequences of this very real thing. Episode 14, The Odyssey, is great. It's another one of my favorite episodes of the season. I love an episode that just focuses on the flashbacks, especially because there's a lot of plot to get through in this flashback with Oliver and Slade trying to get off the island. And even though you know that like Oliver can't get off the island because he's got to be there for 5 years, there's still just a lot of dramatic weight, and you really want them to succeed. And I love how in the flashbacks in season 1, Oliver finally gets to kind of show that he's somewhat capable. Like, he's not a great fighter yet, he can't shoot a bow yet, he's not got any of these skills yet, but he's still smart. Like, you know, he remembers the quote from the Odyssey, and you know, he's not completely useless at the start of his time on the island. And then that's obviously coupled with the dramatic weight of Moira having shot him, and Felicity's getting kind of brought into the fold as well. So I absolutely loved this episode. It's a really great episode. I love episodes that focus on the flashbacks. Like, the flashbacks from seasons 1 to 5 could be their own little movie. That would be awesome. Like, I don't really have the editing skills for it, but I would absolutely buy like if someone cut together every single flashback across the 5 seasons into a movie. That would be really cool. Episode 17 isn't very good. I don't even remember the name of it. Oh, it's The Huntress Returns, that's what it's called. I didn't need the Huntress to return so quick. I think, you know, when it's a character like the Huntress and she's not there throughout, you could have left her until season 2. I like the idea that, like, you know, they're opposing vigilantes more in this episode, but I didn't need the Huntress to come back so quickly. You know, it feels like kind of the ending of episode 8, where, you know, Helena leaves. It kind of feels pointless, considering she came back less than 10 episodes later. So yeah, I didn't really need to see that. And I think my least favorite part about season 1 is the subplot with Laurel and her mom, where the mom thinks that Sarah's alive. Like, it's nothing. Like, nothing ever comes of that plot. And I just find Laurel's mom to be really annoying. Like, she just comes in and just fucks up everyone's life with this, like, crazy theory that Sarah's alive. And then she's like, oh, you know, I let her go on the boat, so it means that I killed her. And I'm like, okay, I've already got like 2 or 3 people feeling responsible for this accident, that if anyone's responsible for it, it's Malcolm. I don't need another person to think that they killed Sarah by just not stopping her from going on the boat. Sarah knew what she was doing, okay? It was her own fault, and largely Malcolm's fault for sabotaging the boat. I didn't need any of this crap with Laurel's mom. It comes to nothing after like 2 or 3 episodes, and it feels like just an extra thing to add drama that I just didn't need. Episode 18, Salvation, is awesome. It's such a great episode. There's so much development for Oliver, Felicity, Diggle, Thea, Roy. And I absolutely loved the villain. I love how he's this dark reflection of the Hood. Not in a literal sense like the Dark Archer, but he's, you know, similarly someone who was kind of broken by how rough it is in the Glades. And he's trying to do the right thing by taking down people that he thinks deserves it. However, the difference is that he does it out of vengeance rather than Oliver, who's doing it for kind of more justice. And like, there's a whole argument to be there because they're doing the same thing, and Oliver does have to learn that what he's doing isn't necessarily justice, and that he doesn't have to murder all these people. But I just love this man being a dark reflection of Oliver, and how they kind of, he sees himself in this guy, and the guy, you know, doesn't really see why the Hood would be trying to take him down, because they're doing the same thing. However, the difference is this guy, I can't remember his name, I'll put it here, but he's not only going after people who are responsible for how bad it is in the Glades, but he's going after victims of the Glades who have to resort to less than legal means in order to survive, such as Roy. And I love the development that Roy gets, because, well, for one thing, I was getting sick of Roy just being like, I grew up in the Glades, you know, in the Glades you gotta do things, and, you know, when you're in the Glades you don't have much of a choice. And I'm like, you do have a choice, you got a choice. Thea gave you a choice and you didn't choose it, so shut the fuck up, Roy. But I love how in this episode then Roy realizes that he does have options, and he realizes that he can do better. He doesn't have to waste his skills being a thief or a robber or anything like that. He can get steady work, and he can even help the Hood. And I love then the beginning of his journey to try and find the Hood and talk to him. And obviously, if you know the comics, you know what becomes of Roy Harper as the story goes on. Jumping ahead to episode 21, the really noteworthy thing about episode 21 that I quite like is that instead of Lian Yu flashbacks, we get flashbacks to just before the Queen's Gambit leaves on its voyage. And you get the stuff with Robert Queen and Malcolm, and you get a bit of an explanation for the list and kind of why these people are bad people. And I really love that. I really love seeing that development, and it's nice to get a bit of a break from the Lian Yu flashbacks. And it's kind of funny just seeing asshole Oliver Queen. Like, you know, he comes in and he's like, the pizza guy can't break 100. You got any cash, Dad? And I'm like, fuck off. Like, you know, it's great seeing the Oliver Queen before he kind of gets taken down a peg. Jumping ahead to episode 23, Sacrifice. This is a really great season finale. I love the dramatic weight of it all. I love the you know, kind of successes and failures of these characters. I love how Roy tries to save the people in the Glades, and Thea tries to save Roy as well. I love the conversation between Malcolm and Tommy. It's one of my favorite conversations in the whole season 1 anyway, when they're arguing about, you know, what Tommy's mother would have wanted. And I absolutely love John Barrowman's acting in this episode, and specifically in this scene, especially when he just loses his mind and screams that they deserve to die, all of them, the way she died. There's so much great development for Malcolm here. I absolutely love it. It's genuinely, look, the dialogue in this show isn't the best, but in that scene, it's fucking awesome. And I love the flashbacks where Oliver finally, you know, shoots a bow with some accuracy, and you just kind of get that triumphant moment of like, yes, he's on his journey to becoming this awesome guy that we've seen throughout the season. And I love Shadow and Slade and the development of them throughout the flashbacks. I also love the drama with Oliver and Tommy, and the way Tommy tries to genuinely be a really good person, but he just feels like he can't measure up to Oliver. But then he forgets all that when he has to save Laurel, and he proves that he is, you know, good enough to stand up to Oliver. But that ultimately costs him his life, and I genuinely got quite emotional during Tommy's death. and especially Oliver's reaction to it, thinking that it should have been him who died. And the way it just ends on that is crazy. Like, I absolutely loved it. And I love the intensity of the fight between the Hood and the Dark Archer. And even the stuff with Quentin and Felicity trying to disarm the earthquake device, and then finding out that there's a second earthquake device and it still ends up leveling half the glades. And it's even great just seeing stuff like Moria coming clean and doing the right thing, which, like, I feel like she's just becoming worse and worse as a person throughout the season, but then she kind of saves herself at the end. I absolutely love it. It's a great season finale to the show. It's one of the best season finales, I think, of the entire series, really. It's a really great episode, so much great drama, fantastic acting. The writing is some of the best of the season. Absolutely loved it. One kind of thing I want to talk about that is throughout this season and throughout the entire show as well is the music. Blake Neely is a fucking trooper. He composed the scores for every season of every Arrowverse TV show from 2012 to 2023, and it's all great. It's awesome. The Arrow season 1 score is fucking awesome. The tracks like 5 Years, Setting Up the Lair, there's a few more, but I just can't think of the names of them now. Such great music. Arrow's kind of main sting, like, you know, that plays over the title card, like the dun 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 dun. It's so fucking good. There's so much great music. The kind of more emotional, slower music as well. You get a little bit of Slade Wilson's theme, which is going to come into play more in season 2. It's so good. I absolutely love the music, and I still listen to it regularly. There's a few of the tracks from it, from season 1, and, you know, as far as season 5, they're in my gym playlist because I get to, you know, it gets me really hyped to, like, exercise to that music. It's awesome. So one thing I kind of want to do with this show, especially since there's so many episodes, like there's 23 episodes in each season, except for season 8. I'm going to do a best episode and a worst episode for every season of Arrow, and shows like The Flash as well, I think I'll do it for. Any show with like more than 10 episodes, I kind of want to do a best episode and worst episode, just to kind of see the heights and the lows of the shows. So I think the best episode of Arrow season 1 is Salvation, which I touched on briefly when I was kind of going through the whole show. I just really love, like, everything coming together in this episode. It seems like just the best of everything. And it would have been easy to kind of just go with the season finale, but I didn't want to do that, especially because I think it doesn't have the balance that Salvation has, because I think the villain of Salvation is perfect. The writing is really good. The growth for these characters is really good. There's a great balance of the characters. There's a good balance for the flashbacks as compared to the present day stuff, because I was going to go with the Odyssey originally as the best episode because I could watch that episode endlessly, but it is mostly flashbacks, so I wanted to go with an episode that was more balanced. And especially just seeing Roy's development as a character, I think he's one of my favorite characters in the whole show, really, especially of the first 2 or 3 seasons anyway. And I think just seeing his growth like that, and Thea's growth as well, it's awesome. This is a great, great episode. The worst episode of this season is Betrayal. In this episode we get a villain who I don't remember the name of. He gets released from prison. He shows up at this house, and I'm not sure if he's connected to anybody in the house, but he shows up, kills the butler, then hangs out there, and he wants to, like, kind of build up the criminal empire because of all the people that the Hood has taken down. and then it's just kind of like Laurel and Oliver trying to find him and stop him. I can barely even remember what happens in this episode. That's how boring it was. Like, it's boring. The villain has no development. The acting of the villain is fine, but there's no, like, heart to any of it. There's very little of the good drama. The dialogue is weak. I don't know, like, it's just, that's the thing, it's just, it's meh. It's just not a very good episode. It's not like the worst episode of the whole show or anything. That's going to be an episode somewhere in season 7, but I just really, I just didn't like it. It was boring. I would never watch it again unless I had to. So I want to end this video by getting into the characters throughout the season, starting with Oliver Queen. I love how at the beginning of the season, Oliver is this kind of machine. Like, he's almost like a robot. He is working alone on the list. Like, there's nothing but the mission, and anything else he does outside of that is just like, it's just pretending. He keeps everybody at a distance, and he just wants to get through with the list. But he quickly realizes that he can't do that. He needs to have his relationships, and his relationships make him stronger. So he opens up to Laurel, he opens up to Thea, he opens up a little bit to his mother. He allows bringing people into the fold with him, like Diggle and Felicity. And I love how he realizes very quickly that he needs to allow himself to have friends and family, and that they will make him better. I also love how he again very quickly realizes that it's not all about the list, that he can branch out and he can stop regular crimes as well, and he can still save people. Like, it becomes less about destroying the list and fucking up their plans, and it becomes more about helping people. I love how his relationships develop. I love how he develops his relationship with Laurel and Thea and tries to recover it from his time on the island. I love how he kind of changes his tune as well. He becomes more about standing up to the Dark Archer and stopping the undertaking, which is kind of the point of the list anyway. Oliver gets a lot of great growth in this season, and I think it's just really great to see that kind of development and allow him to feel his feelings again. Moving on to Laurel Lance. I didn't love her in this season. I really do like Laurel throughout the show. I think she's actually kind of my favourite love interest for Oliver. But in season 1, I just found her to be kind of a one-string banjo. She's got the one emotion for most of it, and it's anger. Like, it's either anger or crying. And I think I would have liked to see her kind of less, uptight. Like, I get, her starting out kind of like Oliver, where she's just angry and it's all about the job for her. And we do get a bit of her kind of like, moving away from that and moving more into letting herself enjoy her life. But I don't think we got enough of that. I think that was a bit undercooked. I would have liked to see more of Laurel learning that she needs to enjoy herself as well. That it's not all about just work and being mad at people all the time. So I think I would like for her to show more of her personality a bit more in the next season. Getting on to Tommy Merlin. I absolutely love Tommy in this season. It really sucks that he dies at the end, because I found him to be really great and have a lot of great development. Like, I love how he starts out and he's just an asshole. Like, he's the way Oliver was in season, like, before the island. But I like how, he gets cut off and he starts to become a better person, and he wants to settle down and actually have a relationship with Laurel. And I just really liked that. I like Tommy becoming more responsible and being a better person and starting to care more about people in his life. I've just found that to be really, really nice, and he's a really endearing character. And the actor, I can't remember the actor's name, but he plays him really, really well. And yeah, I'm kind of sad that we don't get to see much more of him throughout the show. You know, he comes up again in flashback and stuff like that, but um, yeah, no more Tommy throughout the show, unfortunately. Now on to one of my favorite characters in the entire show, John Diggle. Fucking Diggle, man. He's just the best guy. He's the ultimate bro of this show. I just love seeing him and Oliver's friendship develop, and I love his attitude as well. Like he's such a great like kind of friend to Oliver and ally to him, because he also calls Oliver out in his shit. And he's also got his own kind of stuff going on as well, especially with Andy, and his kind of own arch enemy is Deadshot. And man, I just fucking love Diggle so much. Like Diggle throughout this entire show is just amazing. Like he's got the best writing because he's just got the best lines, and David Ramsey plays him so well, and he seems like a really cool guy in real life as well. So yeah, I diggle it. Onto a fairly controversial character from the entire show, Felicity Smoke. I liked Felicity in this season. She doesn't get a lot of screen time. As far as I know, actually, I might be misremembering this, but I think Annie Bet Records was only supposed to be in one episode, in episode 3, but she had such a great kind of chemistry with Stephen Amell that they decided to bring her back in subsequent episodes. And yeah, I like Felicity in this season. You know, her kind of battling and stuff gets a bit overwhelming, but there's not enough of that for it to be really annoying. So yeah, a good amount of Felicity in this season, and she's written pretty well, unlike subsequent seasons. I actually think Felicity is pretty good, like from seasons 1 to 3. It's season 4 where I start to dislike Felicity. Onto Thea Queen. She is one of my favorite characters throughout this entire show, I think, and she gets some really great development in season 1, because at the start of season 1 she's really bratty. She stays out too late. She's drinking underage. She does drugs and stuff like that, and it's just not nice. I imagine she's a very relatable character for a lot of people as well, because she's probably got the most real world problems. I think the reason why I like her and Roy so much is that they're very kind of down to earth and grounded as characters. But I love how Thea, like Tommy, takes up responsibility. Like, you know, when she gets done for doing Vertigo, she has to do her community service, but she quickly realizes, oh, you know, doing community service and doing good things for people is not bad. And you know, being a party girl who goes out and gets drunk and does drugs isn't very fulfilling. But you know, having a real job and doing good for the community is pretty fulfilling, and I love how she realizes that. And even through kind of helping Roy through his shit, again, the thing I love about the relationship between Thea and Roy in this show is that they kind of fix each other. Like, Thea helps Roy to kind of get out of this life of being a criminal, and Roy helps Thea become a better person in general. Speaking of Roy, Roy Harper is one of my favorite characters in this season and in the whole show, I think. I absolutely loved Roy in this season. Again, it kind of got a bit too much like in the Glades, and I'm in the Glades, and life is tough in the Glades, and you have to make tough choices when you're in the Glades. I'm like, Roy, please. Not everything's about the Glades. You got offered a really good job. Take it. You don't have to be like this. And if you're going to be like it, quit complaining about it. But yeah, I really loved Roy's development as he gets out of that mindset, and I love his kind of obsession with the Hood starting up. How he wants to be more like the Hood and to help people. I really liked that. The final character I want to talk about extensively is Malcolm Merlyn. I think he's set up really well as a villain. I like how you get hints at him, and then you see him a couple of times, and you know that he's a bad guy. And then you get the reveal that he's Tommy's father. And I just love how there's this mounting suspicion around him. And then you realize as well at the end of episode 9 that he's the Dark Archer. And it's just you're getting these little kind of pieces of information about him throughout the show. And then it's in kind of the last few episodes where you really see why he's doing what he's doing and how he's going about it, and you get to see a lot more of his personality and stuff. And it all comes to a head in that really great scene from the final episode of the season when he's yelling at Tommy. And yeah, Malcolm is a really great villain in this season. I absolutely loved him. So, that was Arrow Season 1. It's been a long one. Arrow Season 1, pretty good. Very few bad episodes. There was a couple of boring episodes in there, but for the most part I really enjoyed it. You know, the writing isn't like top tier or anything, but it gets really good in a few episodes. And I found myself really attaching to the characters, really enjoying their journeys. The action is great. I feel like I didn't touch enough on the action, but the action and choreography is really, really good. The archery stuff is really, really good. The flashbacks are awesome. The stuff with Yao Fei, Slade, Shadow, really, really great stuff there. And you get to see Oliver's progression into becoming the person that he is at the start of Season 1. And yeah, Arrow Season 1, really, really good stuff. I absolutely love it. And I'm pretty sure that Season 2 will still be my favourite when I get around to it, but I'm really excited to keep going with this show. And you know, like I've seen all of it before, but it's nice to go back and kind of relive that journey and just view it as well with the mindset that I have now, you know, a bit more mature, kind of knowing a bit more about filmmaking and all that. So yeah, absolutely loved Arrow Season 1 on a rewatch, and I can't wait to get on to Season 2. With that being said, please leave a like on the video if you liked it. Comment below, let me know what you think of my thoughts on Arrow. What do you think of Arrow Season 1 and the show in general? Call me a jackass for enjoying Arrow and telling me that I'm a loser and that I should watch real movies and real TV shows. I do, by the way. I know what good TV looks like too. I'm just saying, Arrow Season 1 isn't bad TV either. So yeah, like the video please. Subscribe. I will be doing more reviews for Arrow as the show goes on my rewatch of it. So subscribe to see that and more discussions about filmmaking and stuff. Taking me a while to get out a sentence.